Today is the 1st of August 2023. My name is Holly and I am interviewing Mr. Dryburgh about his time at Blackrod. So, what were the school holidays like and did you go on any?
Well, when I came here all those years ago, the children used to go on day trips and they'd go to Chester Zoo and places like that, but I thought it would be a good idea to go on what's called a residential holiday where you stay overnight. And in those days, in the 1980s, there weren't very many places where the children could go, right? So it wasn't like now where you could go on the internet and find places, Google it, because it didn't exist. So the only place we'd heard of was a place called PGL Holidays, like activity holidays. And it was in Shropshire. So that's quite good, that's not too far away. I said to the teachers, who'd like to go on a holiday with me, with the children? Nobody. Then one person said, well, what do we do? Well, so eventually we went on this holiday, and it was a big house in Shropshire, and health and safety I don't think existed in those days, where all the rules and things, you've got to wear helmets and all that sort of thing that you do now. It's very different then. And I've got 1,000 stories about some of the holidays we went there with the children, but I remember a really good one was we went there and there was a river that ran through the grounds and the children did canoeing. Yeah, I'm sure you do that when you go, right? But they had one really massive canoe, Canadian canoe, like the Red Indians used to have, made of aluminium, metal. It's a metal canoe. It's enormous. And one of the games at the end was the instructors used to say, let's see how many people we can get into the canoe. Right? You can imagine what's going to happen, can't you? So, right, children, who do you think we should go into the canoe first? Mr. Dryburgh. So Mr. Dryburgh is sitting in the middle of this enormous canoe. One person gets in. Bit wobbly. 2, 3. I think we got up to 13 people in the canoe. Like that, in the river. Right? It's a bit wobbly like that, side to side. One person out of the 13, might have been me, decided to lean ever so slightly that way to the left. At which point the other 12 people all leaned to the right. Guess what happened? Wow. We capsized and head first into the water. I was trampling on children under the water because I was trying to get to my feet. Everyone's spluttering, and then I stood up and the water only came to here. So we got into the middle of the canoe, turned over, anyway, like that. We all spinned over, and everybody was going spluttering, and then everybody started to laugh. And everybody laughed and laughed and laughed. And it's one of those things, I talked to the children who went then, what do you remember about your holiday? That's the one thing all remember, about going in the canoe and capsizing with Mr. Dryburgh.
Okay, so did you have like a house near the school? Oh.
I lived in Horwich, so I can tell you a little story about sometimes when it was really snowy, and it was one of the most difficult things I had to do as a head teacher when it got really snowy. You may think, well, why is that difficult? Because I had to decide whether to keep the school open or say to everyone, I'm going to have to close the school for the day because it's getting a bit dangerous, or children won't be able to get here because it's too deep. I used to hate having to make the decision because I knew that if I said the school was closed, lots of mums and dads would have to make special arrangements and grandparents and be all sorts of things going on. So when it was really snowy and the weather forecast said there's going to be a really bad snow tomorrow, I used to set my alarm for about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'd get up and look through the curtains, fingers crossed that it wasn't too bad. But a few times it was terrible. Right? So, what I'd do, you may think I'm daft, I'd put my walking boots on and get myself all wrapped up in the warmest clothes I'd got, and I walked from Horwich to school through the snow, about 3.5 miles. It took me about an hour and a half, 2 hours, just to make sure at the school that nobody turned up that shouldn't do, to make sure that everyone was safe. So I'd get to school and I'd make my decision when I got to school about 7 o'clock in the morning. The school's closed, the school's open. And then all the mums and dads, in those days you didn't have text messages. You couldn't just ping a message out to people's phones. So I was sitting by the telephone. Mr. Driver, school open? No, school's closed. Bing, bing. Mr. Driver, school open? No, school's closed. And I used to ask the caretaker to go onto the front road here and say, anybody turns up, you're going to have to go home, school's closed. I used to hate it, because I used to know that it caused all sorts of trouble for people. But lots of the teachers lived a long way away and they couldn't get to school. And there's one funny thing where the teachers all played a trick on me. Do you want to know what the trick was? I arrived at school, normal day, children all come into school, people being dropped off and all that. And I walked in and one of the teachers said to me, Mr. Driver, you never guess what happened. There must be some sort of bug going around the teachers, because there's no teachers can come in, they're all off sick. I said, well, how many people are here? They said, well, there's me and you. It was Mrs. Law, it was. Remember Mrs. Law?
Yeah.
It was Mrs. Law. She said, there's only me and you and somebody else, I can't remember, Mrs. Clarkson. There's nobody else in. We've got the whole school. And I was thinking, oh, what should I do? We'll do this, I'll get everybody in the hall, I'll tell story, whatever. And so I thought, what we're going to have to do, I'll go on the playground, I'll blow the whistle, three teachers and all the hundreds of children. And so I went out onto the playground and all the children were lined up and I blew the whistle. And then I turned round and it was that office over there where Mrs. Mead's office is now. And I heard this. And I looked up and all the teachers were crowding in the window, waving at me. They played a trick on me. I wasn't a bad bloke to work for. They knew I'd take it in good part and have a joke. See, anyway.
So, could you just tell us a bit about your time at Blackrod?
Well, I've got, as you probably guess, I've got hundreds and hundreds of stories about things that can happen. I can tell you about children who made me smile. I can tell you about the children who worried me because they weren't very happy. I could tell you stories about some children who always seemed to smile, no matter what. And it was those children that made my day special, because I can tell little stories like this. One of the things I said to the teachers when I left on the last day was, I couldn't go around this school without somebody saying hello. Children. I'd walk round, and I've got a really happy memory. I can see it now in my mind right now. I was walking down the corridor from the hall to where the offices are, and I saw somebody, one of the infant children, coming out of the reception classroom. So they were coming this way. You know how small the little children are? Yeah. This big. And I was going that way. You know how big I am? This big. And we walked through all this, we do it. We came closer and closer together. And she just looked at it and she went, hello, Mr. Dryburgh, you having a good day? And I said, yeah, I'm having a lovely day, thank you. Are you having a good day? Yes, thanks. And she went off, skipping down the corridor. That's what you remember when you've had a really happy time in the school. Things, little stories like that. Not the lessons and things that you taught, but little happy memories like that.
So when you first joined the school, like whereabouts were all the classrooms like?
Well, the classrooms were... The building's changed a bit, the old building. We've put some walls have gone in, new toilets have gone in, things like that. The youngest children have always been downstairs and the older children upstairs. Until we got this new building here, and of course the school then grew. So we've still got young children over there, the older children up there, and all you middle children in this one here.